Hello, my name is Dan, and today we're going to be making chouquettes. Now, chouquettes are a French pastry. They're like small balls of dough, and they're great for a snack, for a dessert, and things like that. Now, in order to make a chouquette, we're going to start with a chou dough, and this is the same type of dough that's used in a variety of French pastries, such as eclairs, Paris-Brest, things like that. In order to make this, the ingredients that we're going to need are 250 grams of water, 100 grams of butter, 3 grams of salt, 5 grams of sugar, 150 grams of sifted flour, and we'll need some eggs, anywhere from 3 to 5 eggs or so. I have a scale like this, so I recommend that you use this type of scale in order to measure every ingredient properly. So to start, I'm going to take the 250 grams of water, and since we're using the metric system, 250 milliliters of water equals 250 grams of water. I'm going to put that in here first. And then we're going to add in the butter, salt, and sugar, which I've already pre-mixed right here. So I pre-measured that. I'm going to put that in here. And really what we want to do is make sure that we boil this. So I'm going to walk over to my stove, and pardon me for the somewhat messy kitchen. My kitchen's always like this. And I'm going to boil this until we get this nice and hot. We're going to have it just start to boil because we don't want to lose a lot of the liquid here. And at that point I'm going to be adding 150 grams of sifted flour. So we just take flour, I take something like this and I just strain it through, and that's how I sift that. So I'll do that and then we'll continue on. Okay, so I've melted all the butter. As you can see, it's really starting to boil right now, so I'm going to turn off the heat. And since it's really starting to boil, what I want to do here is I want to add in all of the flour. So I turn down the heat and I'm putting in all the flour. And I want to make sure all the flour gets in here. And once it's all in, this is important. We want to start mixing this right away. So I have a big wooden spoon like this, and I'm going to mix this, and the texture is going to be like this mashed potato type texture at first. You just want to keep mixing though. So you'll see that it's like mashed potatoes. We're going to keep mixing it, keep mixing it. It's going to get to a point where it's kind of like this, where you see a little bit of dry parts, so you want to keep stirring, but at the same time it's not going to stick to the edges. So we want to make sure that we keep stirring this. We want to make sure it's not sticking to edges here. We want to incorporate all of the flour, and this is really the texture that we want to see. Like, this means it's pretty much done. You know, it really only took, as you saw, probably about 20 to 30 seconds or so. And once that's ready, this is looking pretty good. We've made our chou. We're ready to now take this and add this to my mixing bowl. So I've got my mixing bowl right here, and I'm going to now put this into my mixing bowl. So there it is. It's fairly simple. It'll just fall right in. You can use a rubber spatula if you want to get a little bit of specks out. But I've got my dough here. So now I'm ready to incorporate my eggs. So the egg incorporation is actually, this is a part that gets a little bit tricky, and sometimes people do screw up at this part. But we'll be really careful here. And what we want to do is we want to add 1 egg at a time to make sure we get the right consistency. And as you can see, I'm using the paddle. So we'll do that in a moment. Okay, so now we're going to start incorporating the eggs. Now, one of the things I like to do with eggs is I want to be safe with this, and so I'm going to crack an egg, and I'm going to first crack it into another bowl. So I've cracked an egg into my sort of helper bowl here. It's good because you can make sure that you don't get any shell in there, and you can also just make sure that the egg is good. The last thing you want is to have a rotten egg in your mixture, and you add the rotten egg in here, and then now you've got to start all over again because it's contaminated. So this way I know that we have a good egg here. I'm going to set this up to mix, and as you can see, it's mixing around, and I'm going to add my egg in here. And as you can see, it takes a little bit to incorporate the egg into this mixture. While this is going on, I'm going to crack my second egg. I'll have it ready in my little bowl here to look at. So as you can see here, like, it is incorporating, the egg is important, but you want to make sure that it's mixing really quickly, because if it mixes too slowly, the egg can cook, because this is a one mixture. And the last thing you want is scrambled eggs mixed in with your chew. Like, that's not what we're trying to get here. We're trying to incorporate the egg into the chew mixture. So as you can see here, it is pretty much incorporated at this point. I'll give it another minute or so just to make sure that it's really incorporated in there. But the dough is still not really at the consistency that we want. Like, you can see that it's kind of breaking apart here. It needs to be a little bit more runny than what it's looking like here. Let's give this a little bit more time. Just a little bit. So there's that. If you look at the way that this looks here, it's still like that there. I'm going to use my rubber spatula to kind of get the mixture in better. And then the next thing I'm going to do is add our second egg. So far we're in at one egg, and this is going to be the second egg. So the second egg is now in, and we'll let it mix. You can kind of see that the mixture is getting there. The dough is sort of getting to be an actual dough. I'm going to turn this off and try to have it mix again, because it's still too thick. We're only in at 2 eggs, and usually this takes anywhere from 3 to 5 eggs. So we'll see what it's like at the next egg. What you want to do is make sure you do 1 egg at a time. Don't have this temptation where you stick in 3 eggs at once, because you know it'll probably take at least that much, and then just move from there, because you know, all eggs are different sizes. Eggs can be slightly different, so because of that, you don't want to have put too many eggs in, and then your dough is ruined as a result. But if you see what this looks like coming back, like, it's still way too thick. So I'm going to add in a 3rd egg. Here's my 3rd egg. So now we're actually starting to get the consistency that we're looking for. It's actually starting to look like a dough here. Just in case you don't have as great of a look, looking kind of like that. You can see that's kind of what the dough is. And if I turn it off and I put it up, we see that there's dough here, but it's still not where we want it to be, because it's a little bit too thick still. We want it to be falling off like that, the way that it fell off at the end, but that's the type of consistency that we want in the dough without sort of me having to help it along. Right now we're at 3 eggs, and typically, you know, when I make this, it takes more than 3 eggs. It takes like sort of 3.5 to 4. Now, since we're at a position right now where it's actually pretty close, I don't want to put a whole egg in here, because that might go too far, and we might have a mixture that's too runny. So I'm going to mix this up a little bit again and just test it by seeing what it's like here. And it falls off, but like, what we want to see is sort of this triangle that it's starting to form over there, but it's not, it's still too thick because it's not really falling down. We want a triangle that falls down more easily. So I'm going to crack a 4th egg. I put it into my my other bowl here, like I was telling you about, and instead of putting the entire thing in, I'm going to mix this up with a fork. And rather than dumping this whole thing in, I'm only going to dump in, like, say, a third to like half. Yeah, that was about roughly half. And then I'm going to incorporate this half in. So now I'm at 3.5 eggs. And we'll see what happens when this incorporates to see if we got the right texture of the dough. So this is kind of a tricky part and takes a little bit of practice. But as you can see, it's not that difficult. And this is really looking like what we want. As you can see, the dough is it's not too dry, it's not too wet, it's consistent, it stays together. And kind of the test is when you do, when you bring it up like this, it actually starts to fall off, like that. And I'm gonna run it through another mix after I put everything up to the middle, but like as you can see, what happens is it looks like that, like that. When I pick it up with a rubber spatula, it falls down, but it makes a little triangle like that, and that's pretty much the consistency that we're looking for here, is something like that, where it's enough that it's like falling off, but it's not so much that it's going to be like water. It's not. We don't want it to be too runny, and we don't want it to be so thick that it really has no movement at all, right? So now that I did that, I'm going to mix it up a little bit more, just to make sure all of that egg is incorporated there. Good. So the way that Chouquettes work is the chewed dough that is in here has this it's got water in here, it's got air in here, and and the eggs also have water and air in there. So as it cooks, all of that stuff kind of is what makes it rise. So we don't have any yeast in here or anything like that, but that's sort of the science behind how these little Chouquettes will rise on you. So the next step is I'm going to pipe all of this into a bag, and then I'm going to actually start piping these onto my baking sheet.